You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to this episode of the Business of Practice podcast, where we focus on the business and human sides of equine veterinary medicine. In this episode, we're going to talk to Dr. Stacey Cordivano about her experience trying out an AI Scribe system for creating medical records. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Grice, business consultant and former equine practice owner. The Business of Practice podcast is brought to you in 2024 by CareCredit. Dr. Stacey Cordivano is a graduate of Penn State University and the Virginia-Maryland Regional College of Veterinary Medicine. She completed a one-year internship and then founded Clay Creek Equine Veterinary Services in 2010. The parts of practice she enjoys the most are emergencies and chiropractic care. She hosts the Whole Veterinarian podcast and is a member of the AAEP Commission for Sustainability in Equine Practice Culture Subcommittee. In addition, she is a Decade 1 facilitator, a Mentor Vet Equine Group facilitator, and serves on the AAEP Wellness Committee. She's a busy lady. During her free time, Dr. Cordivano enjoys spending time with her husband, Ben, and their two sons, Carter and Asher. Welcome, Dr. Cordivano.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you here. Recently, you told me about how you and your associate had the opportunity to try an AI program while the two of you spent a day doing dental work. I think, between the two of you, you might have done 19 dentals or something, and that you made a dental template to use. And I'm really eager to learn about your experience and how this thing really works, because I don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
And also the potential for AI scribes to help all the people who struggle to get their medical records done. Like, it may increase efficiency. Who knows?
Yes, for sure. I mean, that is really why I dug into it. As you mentioned, I'm involved in a lot of different things, and I feel like being on the forefront of any technology that's going to help a veterinarian's well-being is just part of my job now at this point in my career. And especially with the facilitation work that I do, I hear all the time that people are swamped with records, drowning with records, aren't being supported by their management to have time to get caught up on records. And I mean, that's just not rocket science that's going to affect their personal well-being. So I started seeing in some of the other groups that I'm involved in, especially in the small animal world, that people were using AI technology to help them write their records. And initially that sounds a little scary, I think. Some of the question or pushback I've gotten already is like, well, I don't want AI writing my records. And I think the best thing to clarify in here is that while there is some background language model that's maybe creating some words for you, the ultimate goal of these scribe services is to put everything that you say into a format that's easy to copy and paste. So it's not actually writing the record, it's more organizing the record based on a template that is created in the background. So like you said, this company that I started using didn't have any equine templates, and I tried it out with like a general small animal soap. And I don't know about the rest of the equine practitioners out there, but I don't really use a soap format, and it didn't help me much. So I was able to go in and edit the template, and they actually did help me a lot, and create one for dentals that we started with. And so, like you said, we had a big dental day, and we were able to make it basically just put all the abnormalities in the, in the section that we wanted it in. And then it summarized the conversation we had with clients really nicely. And it puts recommendations at the bottom really nicely. And nothing that we said was really wrong. It just went into the right spot versus us just having a conversation. And then we're able to just copy and paste that into our software. So it doesn't need to integrate with any specific practice management software. there is a step of kind of editing and copying and pasting. But I mean, those, all the things we would have missed in handwriting those notes, but B, the time to just copy and paste versus typing all that is remarkable in the difference in time. That's what we found so far.
The Business of Practice podcast is brought to you by CareCredit. CareCredit keeps equine veterinarians at the heart of care by providing horse owners with simple, budget-friendly financing options. By helping to bridge the gap between cost and care, CareCredit supports healthy financial relationships between veterinarians and their clients. Clients have a flexible way to pay over time for all types of care, and practices get paid in 2 business days. It's a payment experience everyone can feel good about.
So tell me about, the way I understand it, you stick something in your pocket that listens to what you're saying, and then it decides because it's got some intelligence, decides what part of your template it belongs in? Or do you say, this is a recommendation? Or does it know that it's a recommendation?
Yeah, no, it knows. That part is a little scary. It knows when you get to the recommendation section. So, yeah, the background. So you start off, we have been experimenting with this a little bit. When you're wearing coveralls in the winter, it's totally fine to put it in the front pocket. I don't think it works well in a winter coat or the back pocket of your jeans during the summer. So I actually got a little Bluetooth lapel mic that just clips into the bottom of my charging port of my phone and then clips onto my shirt. And that works really well. So the phone, you can even leave the phone on a table and walk away. You just need to know the distance of that microphone. But in small animal, they would obviously just have their phone out on the exam table or whatever. But we do have to find some ways to work around that for equine practitioners. But the lapel mic has been really great. Nobody even notices. I do tell people that I'm recording. And then we just converse. What I've seen the most detail and help for me personally, because honestly, I don't really love writing records. Mine have been pretty brief. I was solo for a really long time. Nobody else technically needed to read them to know what I was doing. So I probably am not the best record writer, and this has helped me just be more detailed. But for me, where I see the most help is in the history. So just things I would kind of course, talk to them about, but gloss over in a record, but is actually important. I'm thinking of one that we talked about hive management. It was just a chiropractic exam, but we talked about the hives that the horse had and what they were on currently. And, if there was anything else they could add in later, that was all then documented. So the program I use is called Covet. And for this one, there's an app on your phone and you just hit start recording. You put in just a few details about the horse's name, like what you want to call it. And then I do try to talk more. That is a difference in how I am practicing now because of this. I think some people are probably talkers. I am not one of them. I'm sort of let me do all my palpating and things, and then I'll talk to the owner at the end. You do need to talk. It needs to hear what you're thinking. So now I'm kind of going through my physical exam out loud so that it can hear. It will pull all that information, put it in the physical exam part. When you get to teeth, you just need to talk about, I saw a diastema at this point there, this tooth is loose, all that you're just saying out loud, which again, by the time you get to the end of that, you may not exactly remember. Maybe you do, but by the 8th horse, you may be a little was that 109 or 108? I can't quite remember. But because you've said it out loud, it hears you and it pulls that out. And in the template that we created, we just have a section for abnormalities for the teeth, and it puts it in the right section. And then you're going over your findings at the end, and it kind of summarizes what you say. Also, if you say any of the medications you're using out loud, it will write those down. There are spots for frequently misspelled words to teach it how to spell ditomidine and xylazine. Mm-hmm. And and then also and then it also summarizes any dispensed meds. So for me, that's been really helpful on emergencies to catch any that last tube of Banamine that I left that I didn't write down. I kind of go back through these and just double check that a late night emergency, I wasn't kind of rushing on my notes that I hand wrote. And so I've been able to catch missed dispensed items because we have a section at the very bottom with recommendations and like plan, and that dispense medication all goes in there. So it pulls it out of the conversation, and then you just hit stop, and it takes a few minutes to transcribe all that. And then you can choose what format of like it's called an export. So I want to export it as a dental template, or I want to export it as a chiro template, or I want to export it as just a summary. If you need to send an email to someone, like they will take a lot less detail and put like an owner summary together for you. So a couple of different ways you can export it, and then that just goes to copy and paste and you put it where you need to put it.
So what happens if you're silent because you're ausculting the lungs or ausculting the heart and it goes silent? Does it say, oh, she's done and shut off? Or
it doesn't. There's a pause button, but there is a lock on button so that like nothing gets bumped in your pocket or anything like that. And that's what I do every time, because it doesn't matter how long the recording is. You don't have to go through it. It goes through it for you. So I just lock it on to record, and then it then just hit stop at the end.
So since you didn't like the soap format, like for your like regular, you're going for a sick horse, your typical, anaplasma off-feed fever horse that you're seeing. So what is it? Putting it in a soap format?
Like a physical exam format. Yeah, we made it. We made a physical exam template, I should say, and it just does more like a. And this is where, luckily, the company I work with is pretty flexible to help you adjust things. You can also, if you start to understand how to work it, you can also just open the template and adjust things. Like if you would rather have your dispensed medications above the recommendations, you can literally just like change that. But the company can help, and I think probably most companies can help you kind of tweak the template to be how you want it. So we just made a basic physical exam one where it's like history, findings, plan, any diagnostics. Like that's very basic, but that's just how my brain has always done
so
it.
Possibly you could make even a pre-purchase kind of template or something like that.
Yeah, we are working on a lameness template. Like obviously that's tricky, right? Like blocks, and it goes very differently. I have not spent a ton of that one is newer. I have not spent a ton of time with that template specifically, but this company is very interested in helping equine veterinarians, and they are working with us to tweak that to make it work as best as possible. Now, it's probably not ever going to be perfect, right? That's why you go through and edit it a little bit. But ultimately, the amount of time that it's saving seems worth it. And the detail that it's catching, I think, makes it worth it to me to kind of try. And it's just not, it may sound like a big hurdle, but like, it's just not. Like once you hit record, it's just not that hard. It's like downloading any other app.
Have you had any pushback, from any clients who felt...
Oh, no, they think it's so cool.
Supported?
And the other thing that's really, like maybe other people figured this out before me, and that's why they talk so much, but I think they see more value in my exam because I'm talking so much. They're like, oh, you're finding this. And like, oh, what did you say about that leg? And I'm like, oh, well, it feels like maybe an old tendon enlargement. Has it always been there? Or it's always been there. I've always felt it. Maybe I've just never said it to you before, like that type of thing. So I think there's also added benefit in just hearing what we actually find as important findings.
That's an interesting idea, isn't it? Yeah. So if people were thinking about, trying something like that, is there a free trial period? Do you get to like check it out, and how long? And then what does it cost and all of that stuff?
There is. So Covet, the company that I use, has a 2-week free trial. I actually am getting a link that is allowing equine colleagues to have a 28-day trial. So I will have that available to share with people to get a longer trial period. Because for me, when I was talking with them, I felt like there just weren't maybe enough cases in that 2-week period that I could really get a handle on it. We just don't see 30 small animals a day, like a small animal vet might.
Yeah.
So I negotiated that with them. I have a link that I can share that will get you a longer trial. The cost, it probably is going to vary. So just to keep this evergreen, I probably won't say exact prices, but it's right now, I think it's around $100, and that gets you, a certain number of cases per month. There's another price for unlimited. Ultimately, I went with this company because it was the cheapest of all the AI scribing services out there. There's probably 4 or 5 out there right now. And I think some people are using others and they're really happy with it. The price tag of over $300 a month, I couldn't wrap my head around that as a small practice. So that is the reason I tried this company, and they've been very receptive to help me work with them. That's not to say that there are not other companies that are out there doing a good job. I know of a couple equine colleagues that are using other ones. But that price point, I couldn't justify the cost of that. But for me, at that $100 price point or around that price point, if it catches me missing a tube of Banamine at like a couple of emergency visits, it's already paid for, right? So that feels very comfortable.
And you think about what your time is worth.
Right.
The time that you spend writing records is non-billable time, and it's still sucking the life out of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I do not want to see associates here at 5:30 at night working on records. It's one thing if you're like out in the field working at 5:30 and you've chosen to add that appointment on. I just don't want to see people here working on records. That feels terrible because I know what that feels like, and I don't want anyone doing that. So I do think that if you're able to utilize this and get the hang of it, there's no way you're not going to cut down on your record time.
Is it hard to get the hang of it?
No. I mean, I'm a millennial, so I'm fairly savvy with my phone, but the bottom line is it's like
even a baby boomer could.
I'm confident that you could figure it out if you needed to. And there's lots of tutorial videos on this company's website, Covet's website. I'm sure there are on others, but the other thing is there is a designated concierge person to help you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've got.
And I told them when I talked to the company as well, I told them that's important. It's important for someone to be able to help. Like, equine vets are busy and they don't have a lot of extra time to sit down and watch a ton of videos. So like if they need a tweak, if someone can be there to help them. And, I think that's part of the technology business model.
Right. And if they get irritated, they're like, okay, forget it. Like the irritability factor because of the busy days is pretty big.
Yeah.
It's really nice that people are trying, equine particularly struggles, I think, sometimes to, stay efficient. Ambulatory practice is already inefficient.
Yep.
So it's great that with such a small cohort of equine practitioners that they're still leaning in to try to help us. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. I do too. And, we can't just lean on well, this is the way I've always done it, right? That hasn't been working out very well for us. So
no, it hasn't.
We've got to be trying new things. And I think this is one that's an easy enough lift. And if you don't want to do it per se, even if you could offer it as a benefit for other people in your practice, not everyone has to do it this way, but allowing people the choice to have it as an option is, progressive and forward thinking and just looks good to younger associates.
Yeah, I think that's such a important information or idea to bring forward, because especially in a multi-doctor practice, you could easily afford this. And, just embracing technology that is new, even if you don't want to use it yourself because you already have a system that's working for you, allowing other people to have that option is huge. And, we talk about sustainability, retaining people in equine practice, being open to new ideas. So important, being open to change. So, yeah, I think that's great. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners?
I think, just keeping an open mind about it, not being afraid that it's going to, steal things or write things that aren't true. I will say one thing I had to stop doing was talking about other cases while I was working on one, because it did give hock injections to a dental that I was working on because we started talking about her other horse. And that's just something I think we do with equine clients, right? We're so conversational. Yes. We know all of their patients very well. And that probably is a bit different than in small animals. So you do have to get in the habit of focusing on the one horse and then stopping the recording and then answering their questions. But probably also better for us, a good boundary for us to set, let's focus on the horse in front of me, so-and-so. And then after I'm done with this one, we can talk about your next horse, or we can schedule another physical exam to talk about that one. So, yeah.
Right. And, the questions that you have about their children or their dog or whatever end up. Yeah. But the thing is, you're reviewing the records it's creating. So you can do a big.
Yeah, I just had to cut. Yeah, it doesn't talk about personal stuff. Luckily, it somehow knows to leave that out. But I did just cut one chunk
smart.
out. It's pretty smart. It did just cut the one chunk out about the hock injections and left the rest of the record there. Yeah. Gotcha. So I think it's worth trying and, experimenting to see if it works for you. Hopefully it does. I know like I said, for myself, my records are certainly more detailed and just a little more complete at the end of the day.
Well, I learned a lot, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hope it helps somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And to all our listeners, thank you for listening to the Business of Practice podcast. And a really big thanks to our sponsor, CareCredit. And to all my listeners out there, be brave, embrace change.